In the world of Berserk, apostles are monsters born of despair, creatures who traded love, family, and humanity for a taste of godlike power. Each of them represents a different form of corruption. Characters like Rosine, the child who wanted to escape cruelty, and in doing so, became a winged demon who inflicted that same cruelty onto others. Wild, hedonism personified, a sadist at heart, he embodied the chaos and degeneracy of unchecked flesh. He was a true monster, one that was completely bereft of morality. The Count, a man who turned his heartbreak into nothing more than gluttonous rage. All of these apostles, while unique and different in their own ways, have one commonality. Every single one of them reflects some sort of human desire, whether it be love, freedom, faith, or vengeance. They all curdled into monstrosity under the weight of the God-Hand's bargain. But there is one apostle who seems to be different, an outlier whose legend carries a strange dignity, a warrior's pride, even a sense of code. Nosferatu Zodd, the Immortal, the legend, the beast who lived for hundreds of years, wandering the battlefield in search of strong opponents. A demon spoken of with awe and reverence, even by soldiers who know they'll die at his hands. Unlike his apostle brethren, Zodd doesn't revel in sadism. He doesn't torture for pleasure, he doesn't prey on the weak. To both the Berserk fanbase and the in-universe characters alike, Zodd stands apart. An apostle with honor, a monster with restraint, a beast guided by a warrior's code. But this legend, this idea of Zodd as the honorable apostle, hides something deeper. Because when you trace his story across the entire saga, a clear pattern emerges. Every major event tied to fate, every act of destiny shaped by the God-Hand, carries Zodd's shadow somewhere behind it. At the Battle of Doldrey, during the fight with Wild, at the Eclipse, during Griffith's rebirth, in every war, every turning point, every chain of causality, Zodd is there. And while many people think of him as a free warrior who bows to no one, the reality is that every action he takes, knowingly or not, reinforces the will of the God-Hand. Zodd is not the noble outlier. He's not the exception to apostolic corruption. Zodd is, and always has been, the perfect servant. We first meet Zodd, quite fittingly in the chapter titled Nosferatu Zodd. Zodd's myth begins as a legend, the immortal warrior who lives only for strong opponents, sparing the weak out of disdain. And of course, when you compare Zodd to other apostles like the Snake Baron, the Count, or Wild, all of them who are sadists who revel in cruelty, he's going to appear honorable. And this is a series filled with characters like the King of Midland, Wild, Lord Ganon, fucking Donobang, and the Sex Horse. So yeah, Zodd is going to appear honorable compared to half of the characters in this universe. But this perception of honor is nothing more than an illusion. When you strip away the surface-level myth, Zodd's honor isn't moral, it's egotistical. Let me make one thing clear. Zodd doesn't fight for meaning, justice, or creed. He fights because the thrill of combat is all that's left for him. And we know this because Zodd has a conversation with the Skull Knight, where the Skull Knight asks him point blank, "Fighting was everything to you, wasn't it, Immortal?" And Zodd replies in turn, "It's that, and that alone." Zodd fights because the thrill of combat is all that's left for him at this point. He avoids the weak, not out of mercy, but boredom. For Zodd, every battle is a drug. Every kill is another hit of adrenaline to keep his immortal mind from decaying into the emptiness that is his life at this point. And we see this firsthand from Zodd's very first appearance within the Golden Age arc.
It didn't eat him. It's killing for sport.
So just to quickly recap this chapter, the Band of the Hawk is hired to clear out a bunch of different mercenaries residing within this fortress. The Band of the Hawk sends numerous men into the stronghold, but none of them come out. Except for one. The legendary warrior, Delos. And the legend of Delos essentially begins and ends in that one moment, guys. But we gotta pay our respects, okay? The Shane D, that stands for Delos, never forget. But getting back to Zodd, I think it's pretty obvious that he doesn't care about defending this fortress. He's only waiting for somebody worthy to fight. He isn't avenging anyone, he's hunting for entertainment. And unfortunately for Guts, he becomes that long sought after source of entertainment that Zodd was hoping to find.
You must not let me down!
Yep, that's me. You're probably wondering how I ended up in this situation.
I think it would be too kind of me to call this a fight. Zodd essentially gives Guts the Kuwabara special. I mean, he beats Guts nuts. What else is there to say, guys? I'll give Guts all the credit. I mean, he put up a brave front, and he did manage to wound Zodd, being the first man to essentially pop Zodd's cherry in about 300 years. But after this, I mean, Zodd just goes into his full apostle form and absolutely decimates him. Zodd is overjoyed throughout the entirety of this fight. This man is savoring every swing of the blade, and when Griffith joins in to help Guts out, Zodd practically climaxes. That is, until he sees the Crimson Behelit. Now, of course, Zodd recognizes what the Behelit is. It's the mark of the chosen, those whose lives are interwoven with the God-Hand's grand design. And in that moment, Zodd understands that he's not standing before an ordinary man. He's standing before the instruments of destiny itself. And from this point on, the fight no longer matters to Zodd. Zodd spares Guts and the rest of the Band of the Hawk not out of any admiration or respect, but because he knows that their deaths are not his to give. But before Zodd leaves, he offers a prophecy. If you can be said to be a true friend of this man, when his ambition collapses, death will pay you a visit. A death you can never escape. Now I want to take a moment to acknowledge what Zodd says here, because these aren't the words of a warrior honoring another's courage. These are the words of nothing more than a servant of fate. Zodd is an apostle soldier repeating the script of causality. He's not choosing to spare Guts. He's recognizing that Guts is already claimed by destiny. And there's a deeper layer here. If Zodd had it his way, he and Guts would be fighting to the death. Zodd's entire worldview revolves around the pursuit of battle, and yet in this moment he chooses not to fight. Now why is that? Well, because even battle must yield to fate. Zodd's love for strong opponents is always secondary to his submission to the flow of causality. And to Zodd, the Crimson Behelit isn't a simple prediction, it's an observation of truth in his eyes. He's seen it before countless times, and he knows how the God Hand works, how ambition leads to sacrifice, and how every chosen one eventually becomes an instrument of the greater design. Now analyzing what Zodd says, a death you can never escape. It's definitely one of the more haunting lines in Berserk, and for Zodd, this isn't a threat, it's a statement of natural law. Because in Zodd's world, the world of apostles and the God Hand, no one escapes the current of causality. And at least in my opinion, Zodd doesn't just believe this man actually embodies it. I mean, you guys think about the apostles, and his entire existence is built around obedience to the cosmic current. Zodd assumes that Guts, like everybody else, will meet a death that's written for him, that's predetermined. But Miura's genius shines through here, because of course, Guts doesn't die. When Griffith's ambition collapses during the eclipse, when the Band of the Hawk is completely devoured, Guts should have died. By the laws of causality, he was supposed to die. He had no power, no protection, and no reason to survive. And yet through sheer will, rage, and refusal, Guts is able to tear his way out of the eclipse. He's maimed, broken, and branded, but he's still alive. So in the end, the very same man whom Zodd called doomed became the one who defied destiny itself. And I bring this up because this is the fundamental difference between a character like Zodd and Guts. Zodd witnesses fate and he bows to it. Guts witnesses fate, and he fights it. Zodd sees the Behelit and recognizes inevitability, whereas Guts sees it and he struggles to overcome it. The line, "a death you can never escape," was supposed to be absolute, and yet Guts still escapes it. And Guts is able to escape by embodying the single principle that Miura threads throughout the entire series of Berserk, that the struggle itself is meaning. Zodd's strength is notable even when comparing him to other apostles, with Locust remarking that his battle frenzy was notable even amongst the most bloodthirsty of apostles, and Grunbelt stating that he can best a force 1,000 strong. But like all apostles, Zodd's strength was born from sacrifice. Berserk never shows us his origin, but Miura's laws are absolute. No apostle gains their power without offering someone or something dear to them to the God Hand. And this single fact alone shatters the illusion of Zodd's so-called strength, because it means that the foundation for all of his honor, all of his warrior pride, is built on an act of cowardice. Somewhere in his ancient past, Zodd had to have faced a moment where his strength failed him, where either death loomed or meaning collapsed, and rather than accepting this fate, he reached for the Behelit. And if there's one thing we've all learned from Berserk, it's that the Behelit doesn't answer the call of the strong, it answers the screams of the desperate. The Behelit activates when someone can no longer bear to be powerless. And this means that Zodd's power, the same power that makes him seem godlike, was born from a moment of absolute human weakness. Throughout the series, we've heard Zodd preach about strength, how only the strong are worth his time, and how the weak are nothing but fodder for the battlefield. Zodd acts as though he has some moral high ground when compared to the other apostles, stating that he has no interest in their indulgent spree, and what he only seeks are the strong. And he lectures Guts on strength, stating, "Words lack elegance, force your way past." But Miura never lets us forget that Zodd's own power is not a product of discipline or battle like Guts. It's a product of betrayal. But what's really fascinating here is that we have proof in Berserk that a sacrifice doesn't necessarily happen only once. We know that Zodd has been around for over 300 years. So I think it's entirely plausible that during this long duration that Zodd has sacrificed more than one thing in hopes of achieving his strength. And we've seen this possibility firsthand through the Count, who first sacrificed his wife to become an apostle, and later was given the opportunity to sacrifice his daughter. And this tells us something crucial about the Berserk universe as a whole, specifically regarding the nature of apostles. It shows that the apostles' servitude to the God Hand is self-perpetuating. They can deepen it, renew it, and even choose to do it again if they want, so long as they have something to sacrifice, that is. So what does this say about Zodd the Immortal, the man who's walked the earth for hundreds of years? How many times has he chosen strength over whatever fragment of humanity might have remained in him? And this is the tragedy of Zodd. This immortality, it's not endurance, it's only servitude. Zodd is not a self-made warrior. He's a recycled pawn, one that's been reforged by the same hands of fate every time he falters. Every drop of power comes from his own weakness. The way I see it now is that Zodd's obsession with strength has to be one of the longest-running lies throughout the story of Berserk. It's the lie that he tells himself to justify a sin that's so old that he might have even forgotten the name of the person he sacrificed to begin with. And I think it's this that makes Zodd the perfect servant of Causality. Knowingly or not, Nosferatu Zodd has been the herald of Causality since the very beginning. From the moment he first appeared before Guts and Griffith, drenched in the blood of countless men, he didn't just test them, he marked them. Zodd is the first character in this series who would foretell the tragedy that would define the rest of Guts' life. And from that day forward, every one of his actions, whether it was deliberate or not, has pushed fate along its inevitable course. At the Battle of Doldrey, Zodd reappears, descending like a myth reborn. When Guts' sword shatters mid-battle, Zodd does a lat spread, flexes his 30-inch biceps, and proceeds to throw him another sword. The same warrior who once fought Guts to the brink of death now arms him. Now, to the untrained eye, this looks like respect, one fighter granting another a fair duel. But the truth is much darker than this. By giving Guts the blade, Zodd ensures that Griffith's victory over General Boss Gon is complete. And this victory seals Griffith's legend, earning him command, status, and power. The very foundations of the dream that will later collapse in ruin. By doing this, Zodd is essentially nurturing a pig for slaughter, and every decision he makes loops back to the same conclusion: the rise of Griffith and the fall of everyone else around him. We see this when Wild goes rogue, threatening Griffith's life, and Zodd kills him without hesitation. There's no contemplation here, there's no real conflict. I mean, Wild does beg for his life like a little bitch, but Zodd still kills him anyway. But here's the weird thing, Zodd doesn't kill Wild out of any principle. It's not because of the heinous acts that Wild committed. It's almost as if Zodd was pre-programmed to kill Wild. Causality demands that Griffith live, and Zodd fulfills that demand instinctively. Even Wild is confused at this point as he outright asks Zodd, "What are you doing?" It's almost like the hand of God itself has been shoved so far up Zodd's ass it's working him like a puppet. And then of course comes the eclipse, the culmination of every thread that Zodd has pulled. And while Zodd claims that he's not guarding the gate, I mean, the irony here is undeniable. You are clearly guarding the gate by preserving the ceremony. And by fighting the Skull Knight, he's essentially ensuring that Griffith's ascension happens uninterrupted. Zodd is making Skull Knight pay the troll toll in order to get into that hole.
You gotta pay the troll toll. If you want to get into that boy's hole, you gotta pay the troll toll to get in.
I think that Zodd has spent centuries truly believing that his lust for combat makes him free in some way. But in large moments like this, I think Miura really shows us the truth. Zodd doesn't fight against destiny, he fights for it. Zodd is a perfect apostle, the servant of Causality. The beast who carries out Causality's work while convincing himself he's acting on instinct. And after the eclipse, the metaphor becomes literal. This immortal warrior, the same creature who once stood above the battlefield as a god of death, becomes Griffith's mount, his beast of burden, his wings, his personal fucking Uber. Griffith probably turns to Zodd and just tells him, "Yo Zodd, get your ass outside, we gotta go pick up my girl Charlotte." This turn of events is definitely poetic, but also a little bit humiliating. This is the same warrior who defied death for centuries, and now he's turned into Griffith's personal chauffeur. But since the eclipse, Zodd has been busy doing most of Griffith's dirty work. We'll be generous here and just call him the errand boy of destiny. He was there when Flora's mansion burned, he fought countless battles in Griffith's name, cutting down armies, clearing paths, making way for the rise of Falconia. And when Griffith came for Casca, of course Zodd was there to take her back to Falconia. But with all of this said, surprisingly, I do think there is a little bit of hope here for Zodd to subvert the flow of Causality. And my opinion here is mainly derived from the conversation that Zodd has with Sonya. Sonya tells Zodd, "You have a choice to make. Madness or volition, beast or warrior. Make it your weapon." And this is one of the few moments in Berserk where someone actually challenges Zodd, not in battle, but in spirit. It foreshadows the one time where we actually saw Zodd act outside of pure servitude, the fight against Ganishka, where he teams up with Guts. And at least in my opinion, these two enemies, one mortal, one immortal, working together to take down an emperor turned god, at least in my opinion, in this moment, Zodd isn't a servant fighting on behalf of Causality, the God Hand, or Griffith. In this moment, he isn't an apostle. He's a warrior again. So maybe, just maybe there's a fragment of Zodd left that remembers what it means to choose. And this brings us to the more recent chapters of Berserk, where we see Zodd once again. We see all of the other apostles kneeling before Griffith and Falconia. But Zodd? He's not bowing. He stands alone, silent, his eyes distant. The panel doesn't exactly tell us what he's thinking. We get just an ellipsis, a brief pause as if fate itself doesn't know what's coming next. Maybe Zodd will look at Griffith, the man he's carried, literally, and realize that he's been carrying his own chains all along. I'm not too optimistic about this, I don't really know for sure, but if this day ever does come, when Nosferatu Zodd finally turns his blade against the will of causality, then I think that we can all agree, for the first time in his immortal life, Nosferatu Zodd won't just be strong, he'll be free.